As many of you know, there has been a war going on in the Middle East in which Israel is on the border of the Gaza Strip at this time and could very well be going in for a land invasion at any moment. But let me assure you, this isn't Armageddon. This isn't the apocalypse, nor is it Psalm 83 or whatever the case may be. In fact, it probably and likely will not even be a land incursion. What many people don't know, and it seems like the headlines rule when it comes to Bible prophecy. Most will read a headline and take off with their imagination, creating all kinds of wars and rumors of wars that simply aren't there. This incursion being case in point. Let me just break down some of the surrounding countries. Even though Egypt is ruled by a Muslim Brotherhood faction, there are mitigating circumstances that prevent the Muslim Brotherhood from going forward with what they may want to do. Number one, Egypt is heavily financed by the United States, for which their economy is in complete disarray. They simply cannot afford to lose U.S. support. You might ask, well, why is the Muslim Brotherhood and the president of Egypt bringing about threatening words to Israel at this point in time and threatening possible military action? Well, frankly, they have to do that because it is what the Egyptian people want to hear. But there's no way that the Egyptian army is going to allow that to happen, nor the U.S. And at the same time, don't you find it funny that Egypt is in the middle of negotiating a settlement between Israel and Hamas? If this truly was a reputable threat, Israel would have no part in allowing Egypt to make this situation better. So many times what you see on the surface is simply not what is true behind the scenes. Question number two, why doesn't Israel just go in and destroy Hamas and take over the Gaza Strip as was the case back in 2005? Well, it's simple. Israel knows that that would take a monumental task to do so and probably would not completely rid them of the state anyway. Secondly, if they did come in and take over Gaza, it would be at a tremendous expense to Israel, an expense that they simply do not want to incur. It is far better for Hamas to rule Gaza because they do provide services, much needed services, that this region needs, such as police protection and other things of that nature. Things that Israel is more than willing to allow them to have. The only problem is that now Hamas has the Fahar 5 missiles that are extremely accurate and now can reach central Israel. That is something that simply is not tolerated by Israel. And this is what the Stratford report says. Finding middle ground will be difficult in talking about the negotiations that are going on right now. So the retention of the Fahar 5 both dramatically improves Hamas' strategic position and gives Hamas the chance to further weaken the Palestinian National Authority. Hamas cannot agree to any deal that takes the rockets away, or that does not at least leave open the possibility that it could have them. Meanwhile, Israel simply cannot live with the Fahar rockets in the hands of Hamas. So right now we have an immovable position in each camp. Obviously, it is a lack of common sense for Israel to allow them to continue with these rockets, and they know that. Hamas, on the other hand, realizes that these rockets give them a considerable amount of power in the region. A power at this time they're not really willing to give up. But here's something that I think is being lost in the battle that's taking place in Israel, and that is I think that Stratford pointed out, and I believe is really probably prophetic. And the title of it is called "Lack of International Involvement." This is what it says. It is interesting to note that remarkable indifference of most countries that normally rush to mediate such disputes, the United States chief among them. Washington has essentially endorsed the Israeli position so strongly that it has no option to mediate. So basically what they're saying is that Washington has basically eliminated themselves from any type of mediation due to their position. The Turks, who had been involved with the Gaza issue during the flotilla incident of May of 2010, have taken no steps beyond rhetoric in spite of relations with both Hamas and Israel. The Saudis have also avoided getting involved. So what is this article saying? It's saying basically that nobody in the Middle East or even any of the major powers are in any hurry to get involved in this particular situation. talking about Egypt. The Egyptians have been the most active in trying to secure a ceasefire. Now we're talking about a country who is involved, that has a Muslim Brotherhood leader, for which many prophecy websites have said, oh, this is going to be the death of Israel, but believe it or not, they're the only ones that are trying to negotiate a settlement. As I've said, the power of the Muslim Brotherhood is only so great due to the behind-the-scenes things that keep them from going forward with any plan that they may have toward Israel. Now going on with the article, it says, beyond sending their prime minister into Gaza on November 16th, as well as their intelligence chief and a group of security officials, Cairo then hosted a delegation of senior Hamas and Islamic Jihad members to further this goal. But while the Egyptians have a great interest in preventing an Israeli ground invasion of Gaza and are crucial to the Israeli imperative to prevent weapons smuggling via Gaza, there is little more they can do at present to mediate between the two sides. If no one seems to want to serve as mediator, it is because there is such little room for negotiation. It is not ideology but strategy that locks each side into place. Hamas has come this far and does not want to give up what it has maneuvered for. Israel cannot allow Hamas a weapon that threatens the Israeli heartland. This situation is too serious for the parties to reach an agreement that ends the hostilities for now, but in reality simply pushes back the issue to be addressed later. No one is eager to mediate a failure. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon has said he will go to Gaza in the coming week, but he will not be in a position to find middle ground. Certainly Israel will not budge on this. Hamas could be compelled to relent under threat from its core financial supporters in the Arabian Peninsula, but these states such as Qatar are all far more concerned with the threat posed by Iran. The fact that these rockets likely originated with Iran ought to give them incentive to lean on Hamas. Now in closing it says, it is important to bear in mind that the war is already underway. Israeli airstrikes are intense and continuous. Hamas is firing rockets at Israel. What has not yet happened is a direct ground attack on Gaza by the Israelis, although they have been mobilizing forces and should now be in a position to attack if they so choose. But the Israelis would much rather not attack. They fear the consequences, measured both in human casualties and in political fallout, that would certainly follow. Thus, both sides want a negotiated end on terms that would leave the other side in an impossible position. While Hamas might be able to live with the status quo, Israel cannot. A negotiated end is therefore unlikely. Still, both sides are signaling their willingness to talk, and however furlong the possibilities, there is a chance that something could be arranged. Now, Stratford says that we remain of the opinion that this current pause will be followed by a ground assault. Only by expanding the decision beyond the Fahar 5 to a broader settlement of Hamas-Israeli issues could these negotiations succeed, but that would require Hamas recognizing Israel's right to exist and Israel accepting the equivalent of the Palestinian state run by Hamas in Gaza, one that might spread its power to the West Bank. The more expansive the terms of these negotiations get, the more dubious their prospects for success, and these negotiations start off fairly dubious as it is. Now here's something that I want to bring up that I doubt very many are going to come to the conclusion of. Right now, none of the world powers that be, especially those that surround Israel, are in any hurry to get involved in a no-win situation in negotiating a settlement. Even the U.S. is really in no hurry to get involved in it. And as I listed earlier, Turkey and some of the other nations, they are all on the outside looking in because of their positions. The only country that seems to be even remotely involved is Egypt, and many have written them off as future enemies of Israel. But I think this opens up the moment for a perfect storm. Could it be that the Bible is correct in saying that someone from the European Union will come forth? As you know, the European Union was not mentioned in the list of nations that are basically counted out as negotiators. But could it be that the Bible is correct, as I've said, and that a man from the European Union will rise and will negotiate this impossible settlement? As the military strategists from Stratfor have indicated, that both Israel and Hamas want something that the other basically says they cannot give. And with the present situation in the air, that's probably true. It probably will not happen. But I believe once the rapture of the church takes place and the restrainer has been removed, this world will become a very different world, open to deceptions that would previously be unheard of. One thing that many people do not understand is Satan is a very powerful creature that God has created, more subtle and devious than any man could ever think or imagine. And it will be through his great deceptions that this peace agreement will take place. Now the question is are we on the cusp of a peace agreement being put into place? Well, the answer is simple. No, we are not. But the reason behind why we're not is quite as simple as well. The rapture has not taken place. This agreement will flounder in the wind until the church is removed. And when the church is removed, what seemed to be impossible will all of a sudden become very possible and will commence in being a reality. So this is what I speculate will take place in the future regarding this situation. Now I'm sure many of you are asking yourself, well, is this going to turn into a greater Middle East regional war? At some point in time, yes, it will, but it's not going to in the near future. As I've said many times, that I believe that peace is probably more likely than a broader Middle East regional war, as some believe that will take place, such as those who have adopted a Psalm 83 type scenario taking place in the near future. Frankly, I believe that the next thing on God's calendar is the rapture of the church. But I do find it interesting that a very highly respected military think tank believes that the world has adopted an indifference to Middle East peace, and that nobody wants to get involved in a no-win situation anymore, which is trying to bring peace between Hamas, Israel, the West Bank, and other entities in the region. So this may be something you want to keep in mind that could very well take place in the very near future. Well, I always like to close with one thing, that is that we all need the Lord if we are to go to heaven. The Bible says that we have all sinned and come short of the glory of God, which means that you can't go to heaven unless you have Jesus as your Savior. So if you haven't made that decision for Christ, I would encourage you strongly to do that today, because your time simply is running out. This is Terry Malone with the Calvary Prophecy Reports.